show them. The Middle Ages were an exciting and beautiful time. Kings feasted on 14 oxen for dinner, knights saved the day, and universities were developing, making education a furthering process. And although masses of people were experiencing the beauty and progress of medieval times, they were also experiencing a stagnation in medical science, which left them dealing with the bubonic plague. The bubonic plague, also known as the Black Death, killed an estimated 75 to 200 million people. It killed 50 million people in Europe alone. If you imagine the United States population as a ruler, it would have killed about 8 inches worth of people in our population alone. The Black Death is known, or is considered to be the most devastating pandemic in history. First, we will discuss how it was spread, then we will discuss its history and how it has affected the world. So how did it all begin? The first and most prominent way that it was spread was rodents. Fleas and ticks would bite mice and rats, who would then spread it to the humans that they lived around. It didn't help that people at that time were generally pretty filthy with no access to bathing equipment like clean water or soap. So they would spend weeks to months between baths getting bitten in between with no way to properly clean the bite, which would make them more prone to the disease. Ships were another main source of the bacteria itself, but that kind of goes back to the rodents again, because rodents would sneak onto the ships and with no way to escape the bacteria because they didn't land frequently or very quickly at all to port, it would just spread amongst the ship in the tight living quarters, and ships would arrive to the ports with hardly any crew members alive or completely ghost crews, leaving a need for helping carrying bodies off the ships, which also helped to spread the disease. So although rodents were the main cause, having better access to cleaning supplies would have probably helped. So now that you know a little bit more about the spread of the Black Plague, we can talk about its history. How did the Black Death get its name? It got its name from its symptoms. Cysts called gavaciolos, which were found in the groin, the neck, and the armpit, were seen to be a token of death. They oozed black, and they would bleed when they were opened, and so that's kind of how it got to be called the Black Death, because it oozed black and it was the token of death. It started in Asia on the Silk Road and was spread through the trade routes. So anywhere that had a port, it was very easy to access the disease. It started in 1338, and it remained strong until 1363, with cases in every year from 1338 to 1671. The third pandemic started in 1885 in China, and it lasted another 4 years. There have not been very many cases since, but a drug-resistant form did pop up in Africa in the last 5 years. The CDC says 1 to 17 cases are found in the United States every year, with a mortality rate of just 8 to 10%, so it has significantly gone down. The aptly named Black Death is a dangerous bacteria that has a very long history. It has impacted the world in many ways. So how did it affect us? The death toll of 200 million had led to advances. We had to figure out better ways to clean. We had to figure out better ways to give people medicines, better ways to cure. And we also developed a large-scale blame on groups of people. There was a lot of prejudice on friars, beggars, pilgrims, and lepers at that time for the spread of the bacteria from people who didn't have the disease. They just put the blame on anybody that they thought looked like they had gotten bites or freckles or anything. They found any way to blame it in any way they could, just to spread the blame on somebody else. But luckily for us, it's not that big of a problem anymore. The mortality rate is much lower, and with the advances in technology and medicine, cases that are caught early are now treated with just quarantine and antibiotics. So although it is dangerous and it has affected society, we have advanced in so many ways that we don't really have to worry about it anymore. The pandemic killed hundreds of millions of people in the Middle Ages. It spread through rodents, it spread through hygiene, trade routes, it stagnated the world, and the name struck fear and brought prejudice to the poor and the working class. The world grew and learned, and as that happened, the bacteria became less and less prominent. And although the medieval times were one for advancement, it was still such a huge shock to the people. On one hand, they were experiencing the Renaissance and got to see all the advances in the art and the technology. On the other hand, the Black Plague was killing many of the people around them. But it is lucky enough for us now, with all the advances in science, that we don't even have to think about, let alone worry about, the Black Plague. But we do live in a world where the media will try to scare us with the bird flu or the Zika virus. But luckily, we can look to the history of the world and know that we will persevere through advances in technology and advances in medicine and the knowledge of our past. And panda butt now. That's it.
We're still here.